Join us each week for some booze-free banter about life without booze.
If you're entertaining cutting back your booze by a day, a week, a month, or for the rest of your life, we would love for you to tune in.
Buckle up and come along for a ride that may just change your life. Just a heads up, some of the conversations we have may be triggering. Reach out to your local support centre in Australia. That's Lifeline 131144.
Booze Free Bants is recorded. I am on Burrawang land. Where are you, Breeza?
I am on the home of the Djajarurrung people, Maso.
And we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to the elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples today.
So wherever you're tuning into the potty today, make sure you know whose land you're on. Maso!
Breeza! What are you drinking there?
I am drinking Altina LeBlanc today. Altina LeBlanc. What did you crack?
La Vit and Rosé.
La Vit and Rosé.
And what have they given us?
So to all our listeners, all our Booze Free Bants listeners, Altina Drinks have given us a 10% discount code. The discount code is BFB10. Pop that in at checkout. Go to www.altinadrinks.com and shop up a delicious storm of goodness.
Oh, my Lord. So good. We love you, Altina.
Love you, Altina. Maso, tell us who we've got on today.
We have got Logie Award winning. He has been on shows such as Have You Been Paying Attention? He's been on Celebrity Name Game, All Star Family Feud. He's Hughesy We Have a Problem. He has headline acts at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. He's more recently been on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and also MasterChef. He's got a podcast called Fitbed Pod. He is Dilruk Jayasinha.
Yay! I don't think we should waste any time, Maso. I think we should bring him in and get him in the ear holes of our listeners because he was absolutely brilliant and we're pumped about this ep.
I just love the way that he unpacks things. He really just peels it back, doesn't he?
He does.
Deep thinker.
Massively deep thinker and obviously bloody hilarious bloke.
Really, really funny. We can't wait for you to get your ears around Dilruk. Here he is.
Let's bring him in.
A big Booze Free Bants buddies welcome to our very special guest, Dilruk Jayasinha.
Hello. See, this is no credentials, nothing, just a good friend, and I love it. Yeah. And I think that's the vibe we're going to continue with this at point.
Oh, I love that.
What happens though if your listeners have no freaking clue who the fuck I am?
Well, we would have done an intro before this.
We've given a big spear. We've pumped your tires up massive, Dil.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. I think that's what it is. You know what? I think that's what it is. My ego wasn't inflated enough, I think. And so
Mate,
we need to go back in time.
Well, we can go back on that if you like. We'll give you a little bit of a pump.
No, I'll just pull up my website and I'll just read that and feel good about myself again.
Dilruk's very famous if you haven't heard of him.
Boom.
And we are very, very honoured to have you with us today, Dil. I got onto your sober journey through your good co-host, our previous guest, Ben Lomas. You do Fitbed Pod together and you guys are off the booze. So that's why we've hunted you down. You've so kindly
Holy shit! Oh, sorry. What you just saw was a genuine reaction to me. Is you recording the video of this?
Yeah.
You might have seen my eyes dart down and then yell, holy shit, because I darted down to look at the date and it's exactly 6 years to this date that I quit drinking. I swear on my mum and dad's life, this is and we didn't plan it. This is what I'm losing my shit about.
I've got goosebumps.
Hey, I swear to God, if I was in 14 layers because I'm in Melbourne, I would show you the goosebumps, but I cannot believe that the anniversary of my 6 years of no booze is a chat with you. That I'm
the universe.
The universe is on our side. Let's go buy a lottery ticket. Come on, let's go. I swear to God, I really.
Did something pop up?
No. Because you said Ben and you have been off the grog, and I'm like, I was going to say, oh yeah, he's been off 5 years and I've been off 6 years. Then my brain went to, oh yeah, it's 6 years in August. Oh, August 18th. And I looked down and I was like, oh shit, it's today. The fucking chances. I cannot believe, because also we've been trying to tee up this time for maybe since the start of the year or so when you first hit me up. And it was because things were so erratic that I couldn't. And we literally just threw a random date That didn't cross my mind, which is also a good sign, which means that I'm not living and, focusing on that date. And it's sort of like, back in the day, obviously, I was like counting down to the first year anniversary, whereas now it's just part of my life that I don't think about it. However, what a special moment.
I love this.
We are
My God, man, you know what? Let's just end the pod there. We're not going to top that. We can't top that moment.
Done.
So seriously, that's what happened. You mentioned Ben, and I went, 5 years for him, 6 years for me, 6 years in August, and I went, fuck.
And your reaction, I actually saw that. Like, I was actually looking at your reaction was, we're gonna slow-mo that.
And send me the video, honestly. I really want to see that. Oh
brilliant.
my God. What a perfect way to celebrate it. Thank you so much for having me.
The potty.
Yeah. Well, we are blessed. Our hearts are full already. And I'm sure that our listeners will be just loving that sick as well. So you've heard the potty before, Dil. You know that we're just going to throw you straight in the deep end with confession session.
Confession session. It's time to play. Where you tell us what you're ashamed to say. Confession session.
So what do you want to know from me? Do I need to say, forgive me, Breeza and Maso, for I have drunk a lot.
Give us your warts and all.
Look, there's obviously there's a plethora of things to pick up from. You know what I mean? Yeah, there are bits of stand up that you can actually go to in my stand up special Bundle of Joy. There's stories about me shitting my pants because I was drunk. There's stories of me sticking my dick in a vacuum cleaner because I was drunk. Like, so really, I don't know how much we don't have enough time in one podcast to get through it, but I guess give me a guideline as to, in terms of confession. Narrow the window a little bit, because I can pick and choose. Is it physical stupidity?
Tell us your most shameful story.
Well, it's probably the poo in my pants in public, and then having to walk down Spencer Street completely naked. But this is my thing. Is like, if I were to tell it on the pod, it's just like, it's better as a stand-up bit, But so instead, maybe what I will tell you then is I'll tell you one that isn't been on stand-up, but also is as embarrassing, I guess. I suppose it was 2010, 2011, I think, something like that. And I did Dry July and was very proud of my effort. And then on the 1st of August, I got absolutely fucking maggot because I think it was two things. One, maybe my tolerance had dropped, but also I think it was just psychologically, I was like, I'm going to push the boundaries because now I'm back on. And it was a Monday. It was a freaking Monday. So, and I finished my work as an accountant that day. And because I was in this limbo period, so I think it was 2010. It feels like it would be a 2010 thing, where I wasn't doing comedy yet. And I knew I was wanting to be an accountant because I used to be an accountant. Then I left, got fired, and then started to seek other things in my life. And I think it was in the limbo period. And so a lot of my friends were still going to uni. And I still was kind of like, uni lifestyle / corporate. Like I was just, I hadn't grown up yet. And so that night I remember, getting that Arvo actually, like 5 o'clock or whatever, getting quite drunk, and then met up with my mates who were at a uni party, and it was like a traffic light party or some bullshit that you do at uni. And even though I must have been like 25, one of those absolute toolies at this uni party. But the thing is this though, I got blackout drunk. And the next thing I remember, I went to this pub, but the next thing I remember is that there's a bouncer, I'm on the ground and a bouncer holding me down. So, and I, as fucked up and gross as I got as an alcoholic, I never was a violent guy. So this was a surprise to me going, oh shit, like what the fuck? Why is there a bouncer over me? And then after a little bit of sobering up and chatting to him, he said, do you not even remember what you tried to do? I was like, no, what? He's like, fill me in. And so then he said, okay, we kicked you out. And because I come from Sri Lanka and I'm scared of authority, you don't fuck with police and politicians. I am always, I'll add a little side note that I am someone has been kicked out multiple times for being drunk, but also had equal amounts of times that I've been let back in, because on the way I get kicked out, I am so charming and so apologetic that the bouncers are like, fuck, you're not as bad as I thought you were. All right, come back in. It's happened so many times because the reason I get kicked out isn't like aggressive. So it'll be like, oh, I fell off a chair, or I fell asleep under the table, or something like that.
Just messy.
Just sloppy. Yeah, just really like, so it's like, so on the chat out, as I'm getting ejected,
The debrief.
I am so ashamed of embarrassing myself that I overcompensate with super charm and just switch it on and then get let back in by the bouncer. I actually, on that, I got kicked out of Flemington Racecourse. I think it was Derby Day. And as I was getting kicked out by the cops this time, they were about to chuck me in a divvy van. And I was just chatting and, making me laugh or whatever. And I said, oh, by the way, just letting you boys know that if you want, the train station's right there. I'm happy to put myself on a train station instead of this and I said to them, let's be honest, there's way more piss cunts in there than me. And they were like, fuck, you promised to get on the train? I'm like, I swear you can watch me get on the train. Just let me go. They're like, all right, get out of here. And so I literally avoided being in lockup because I charmed my way out of it. Because again, I was never like aggressive. I was gross. I'd vomit and maybe like said inappropriate things and behaved really embarrassingly, but I never got violent. It wasn't like a threat to, like police and stuff. It's like, this guy's a fucking moron. So I was like, they're like, yeah, all right, fine, get out. So it was easier for them to just, trust that I'm going to do the right thing. So anyway, the bouncer tells me that I was getting kicked out, and then I said, yep, fine, all good. And I walked out, and then I had, because it was like a regular pub that I go to, I was like, oh, they have a beer garden. I've decided that I can sneak back in by climbing the fence around the corner to get to the beer garden. But then when I got there, I couldn't scale it because I'm not fucking Spider-Man. And so, plus I'm like 125 kilos, but there was a car parked next to it. So I have gotten on top of the car and tried to launch off the car onto the thing, dented the car. The car belongs to the bouncer. And he's like, all right. And, that's going to cost me like $3,000. And I'm like, you owe me $3,000. I'm like, sure. Again, like my responsibility, my fuck up. And so the next morning I had to go back to work. I'm back in the accounting office, in the toilets, in the dunnies, like hungover, and just probably like the first of many rock bottoms to come. Right. This was like the first big one, I think, because it was like, it stopped being cute and funny uni stories. Like there was times that I'd like wake up later on, like in emergency wards and things like that, all that shit. But this was like the first one that I was just like, what the fuck? Like, I can't believe I'm now $3,000 in debt because I didn't have the money. I was like making, I can't remember, like $100 a week or something like that at the time. Not quite, but around that, like 300 or something like that. So I'm like, $1,000, that's fucked. And then, really depressed, like genuinely sad, like that, that shame spiral. And then it was the first memory I have of using a gratitude list, where I literally grabbed like an envelope from the bin and just started writing out all the good things in my life, because it was so flooded with shame and embarrassment and worthlessness that I just went, okay, I'm going to hijack this by just reminding myself what is good. Okay, parents will love me, a stable job, friends will love me, and just started just writing all health and things like that. And it was this weird thing of, while the both things were simultaneously true, it didn't mean that I didn't fuck up and need to take responsibility, but it also meant that I didn't need to wallow in that area. I can still also acknowledge that, hey, my life isn't as bad as my brain is telling me it is right now, Yeah. So it's almost like an accountant. I took stock of what was happening in my life, and it kind of helped me breathe a bit better. It still meant that was still a problem to be dealt with, but I was able to get some perspective and go, okay, as fucked up and shit as you feel right now, you're okay, and you're going to be okay. We just got to figure it out, even if you don't have the answers yet. And so that helped me breathe and realize that this is not going to end me. So then I went and spoke to my boss, and I told him the story, and he said, okay, fair enough. And what he said is he'll pay the money, the $3,000, but each week we'll deduct like $100 or $200 so that I don't have to worry about it as being this thing that I don't know how I'm going to fund the money. At least he's got it, and then I'll work it off, So that was great, breathing space. And then the next day, or that same day, I don't know, I had the contact of the bouncer or whatever, and I went to meet up with him. Oh, I think it might have been that day. I think it was that day. I went to meet up with him. He goes, oh yeah, thanks so much for coming. I appreciate, you not being, trying to run away from this or whatever. And he gave me the receipt the quote from the panel beater. and it was like $600.
Oh,
And immediately my brain was like, my God, this is so amazing. Like, I can't believe that I feel so good. And rather than focusing on, hey, I am $600 in the hole, my brain said, man, you've just made $2,400. So I went out and bought new headphones, and I bought like a bunch of DVDs. I just treated myself because I just all of a sudden had $2,400. So that is a good description of what an absolute fuckhead I was, and how long it took me to acknowledge that this was a problem. Because as soon as the rock bottom, like as bad as things got, there was this immediate kind of reprieve, or because of my own resilience in terms of the gratitude list, as well as my own fortune that it wasn't as bad. My brain went, oh, fine, we survived that as well. Fuck, let's just keep going. So that's the problem that sometimes you might have being a serial fuck up, is that the solutions were always there, whether it's your luck or your own, will. Yeah. Somehow, if you keep finding solutions, you'll keep making the problem. And at some point, it has to get to the point where it's not good enough. You can't just, you just feeling that shit, even for that small moment, isn't good enough for me anymore. And that's what I think shifted for me down the track 6 years later or whatever, when I kept drinking.
Wow. I love that story.
So do I.
And this is not even talking about shitting my pants or sticking my dick in a vacuum cleaner. So imagine, this is what I'm saying. Like,
oh gosh, Dil, thanks for sharing that, mate. So you did have some few nicknames along the line.
Say again, please.
You had a few nicknames, didn't you? Didn't you have a few nicknames along the line?
The one that I can only think of was like, I used to go on a lot of like end of season trips with this baseball team, which I never played baseball, but but they wanted a good drinker on the team, and I was there to provide that role. And we were in Adelaide, I think, and all the, it's very much, let's also remind it in the context of the mid 2000s, where say toxic culture and toxic masculinity and things like that weren't discussed. So, but there was very much an idea that we go out to Adelaide. I think it was Adelaide this particular year, and we went to Gold Coast and things like that. And the idea was, all the single men would try and pick up and try and meet girls or whatever. And I was the only one that could never attract anybody. And literally the discussion meant like, maybe it's your name, Dil. Dil doesn't feel like a sexy guy. Oh, I'm Dil. Because also I'm really chubby at this point, really quite like 125 kilos, right? So as they're like, oh, what's a better one? And someone, I think myself, I said, well, Dilruk sounds like Duke. Should we start calling myself Duke? And so then we tried to create this persona of Duke, who is actually good with women and things like that, which I don't think actually ever paid off, to be honest, because it had nothing to do with my name. It's just that I didn't like myself. And that was the reason I couldn't attract anyone else, is because I didn't like myself in the first place. So I think that's probably the closest thing in terms of nickname I can think of.
Yeah. Well, and I think carrying on with what you were talking about before, like you touched on it, how bad did your drinking get and what did it look like? And was it about fitting in?
100%. Absolutely. It was I think so many of the things in my life that I had to work on, let's say booze being one of them, stems from wanting to fit in versus realizing I just wanted to belong. I think just wanting to, and the difference, I think it's Brené Brown has kind of described it as fitting in is trying to be with people. Belonging is being with people who accept you for who you are, and fitting in is trying to be a version of you that with people who don't care either way, but you think that and I butchered the quote, but there's something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
And every level of insecurity, I think, stems down to that very thing of me not feeling good enough and not worthy enough as myself, and needing to fit and mold myself into a version that I thought the other person wanted me to be. Now, if you want to delve even deeper, it starts probably from having mixed religion parents who dad's a Buddhist, mom's a Muslim, and dad worked overseas. So I grew up in the Muslim house, and there was about 14 of us in the one house. And so my brother and I were the only non-Muslims. So already there, I wasn't, like it was felt that I wasn't part of like exactly, they never didn't make me feel welcome. But there was a sense of you're not completely yourself. I couldn't completely be myself because there was this big difference between us. Then my parents sent me to a Catholic school, so I'm a fucking minority there as well. Yeah. And then throughout all of that, I come to Australia, where all of a sudden, then again, I'm a minority again. So there was never anywhere in my entire life that I felt like I could just be me, and that was enough. And I think stand-up is the one place that gave that to me at this point, like realizing in hindsight, that's why I love stand-up so much, because when I get on stage, I tell the stories that I want to tell about me, and people are laughing and enjoying and paying me money to be myself. And when it's something that you've craved for 30 plus years of your life and you're getting it, it's such a potent, like, think about it, not just feeling like you belong, but it's just fueled by laughter and joy and people's clapping and things like that. It's like a fucking heroin boost. You know what I mean? Like, it's just an absolute rush. So for me, I've come to, I've had that realization literally as recently as earlier this year. And I realized that's why I love stand-up as much as I do, is because it fulfills such a deep, deep need for my sense of belonging. And knowing that is good now, because then I can keep it in check. Because sometimes for a while there, I was saying yes to every little gig that I was coming on my way, because I didn't realize that's what I was trying to fulfill. But now that I know, I'm like, no, okay, that's good. I've got my fulfillment from that, and I will always love it. But I can also get that sense of belonging by, you know, spending time with my girlfriend, who painfully loves me as I am. You know what I mean? I like kind of wish at times, because I put on a bit of weight, and I wish that her love faded a bit, so that would motivate me to get in better shape. But no, she just loves my personality, and I fucking so disappointing that that my weight has nothing to do with it. So I need to find motivation to lose weight intrinsically. So things like that, just learning how to kind of like wrestle with that. But in terms of fitting in, booze 100% plays a part. Fitting in plays a part in my boozing, because when I moved to Australia at uni, there was such a boozing culture. And even though I didn't really drink, I had a couple of nights of maybe getting a little too pissy, literally 2 or 3 nights in Sri Lanka, maybe a max. But came to Australia, and
how old were you, Dil?
19. I was 19, and my ability to scull pints was unseen on campus. Like, I was able to put down a pint in like 4 seconds.
Have you got the gullet thing?
Yeah.
You've got that.
Yeah, no, it's such a shame I'm not gay, because my God, the amount of peen I would be able to guzzle. It's just a wasted talent, really. You know what I mean? When you see someone's potential and not fulfilling it, it's heartbreaking. But I was. My record is a full jug of beer. I sculled it in 11 seconds, and then 8 stubbies in a beer bong. I was able to do that in 8 seconds. I think. Sorry, 3 stubbies in a beer bong in 8 seconds.
Jesus. We have a friend like that, Dil, and every Thursday night for uni night, she'd get up on stage and everyone would try to challenge her. These big burly blokes would come up on stage and try and challenge her, and she'd just smash a pint, and they'd be like, it was amazing to watch.
It's such an incredible skill, and it's such a I don't know. It's seeing the faces of the people I've just destroyed. It was so. I'll give you a great example of that, which was boat racing. Right. I think if people don't know, it's where you say teams of 4 or whatever. You sit opposite each other, and you're to scull, and you can't start until the next one until the first person finishes, the second person can't start. So it's like a relay style, and the last person has to do 2. They call them the anchor. And I was always the anchor, doing two pots. This is half pints. And I remember I started working as an intern in KPMG, and so me and another mate of mine we were in our suits, and we went to a uni party. Believe it or not, the same pub I got kicked out. This time I'm in a suit. The pub was called the Bedford, for context. Okay. If you know, where are you guys based out of?
Melbourne.
In Melbourne. So you know that roundabout that's Satan's asshole.
Yes.
You know
I know the one you mean.
The one near Flemington Road and Royal Parade. So it was on the corner. Yeah, Bedford was the name of the pub. Anyway, so this business friend of mine and we were in our suits. We went to this place, and we were just like another corporate mate of ours. And there were these American frat boys who were really big noting themselves and shit. And so somehow in the conversation, the boat race came up, but there's only 3 of us. There were 6 of them. So we said, okay, we'll do double what you guys are doing. And we'll, you guys go 1 each. And for the anchor, I didn't have to do 4 half pints or anything, it was just 2 pots. And we did it so quickly. So my first mate did 2, then the next guy did 2, and then I did 2. But we had done it so quickly that the guy in front of me hadn't even got to his pint yet. And so when I finished my 2, I grabbed his, sculled his as well, and said, "Welcome to Australia."
Mic drop.
Yeah, exactly. So the reason I say that story is because you contrast that hero feeling that I had in that moment with the first week of Australia, where no one knew me, and I was just another international student who was just, no friends, family's not around, just completely getting lost in the crowd. And feeling like I want to, be part of something and whatever, and craving that. So you fast forward, 4 or 5 years, and you can see what the amount of fulfillment drinking was giving me. It was giving me that place of feeling like I'm worthy, feeling like I'm liked. Everyone wanted to hang out with me and party with me and things like that. Whereas the first week, no one could give a shit about me. I was, especially not in a racial way, but just generally when you think about it, it's like, if you're at uni, would you rather hang out with someone you knew from high school or some rando from Sri Lanka, right? So it was really hard to make friends, or it felt like, it was an uphill battle. And then all of a sudden, my ability to scull pints meant that I was getting attention. So rather than realizing that, see, my core group of friends, who I'm still friends with, literally caught up with them 2 weeks ago for Christmas in July. Like there was 9 of them, and we're still mates. They didn't like me because I drank. They just liked me because who I am. But you don't know that as a 19-year-old, or your subconscious doesn't know that. You've just associated your new popularity or new, friendship group because of drinking. And therefore you think the more I drink, the more popular I'm going to be, and just.
Did that become your identity? That's
100%. Absolutely. People are blown away when they find out that I don't drink anymore. So I have a lot of uni mates, who I'm not as close in touch with anymore, who come to the show, and then we'll chat afterwards. And they're like, "Oh, so that's really funny that you talked about not drinking, though. Like, what's the real story?" I'm like, no, like I'm seriously off the grub. Like they're like, "Nah, surely not," because that's how much people associated me with the party boy lifestyle, you know what I mean? And it's part of the reason why I never did drugs, is because I had such a wild, larger than life personality just on booze that I knew, even as a teenager, even though it was around me, I'm like, my God, even if I try drugs, that's the fucking end of me, because I can't quit beer and KFC. How the fuck am I going to stop pingers,
So you've gone from like party boy sculling to and single. You're off the market with your gorgeous girlfriend Maddie. Can I just say, you guys are very aesthetically pleasing. I was looking at Instagram. I'm like, they look like such a fun couple. Like, I just want to be their best mate. So
thank you. That's one of the sweetest compliments ever.
That's just purely looking at Instagram. But you look like a really fun couple.
Yeah, we're very goofy, and I think I think
that.
I'd struggle to be with anyone who doesn't appreciate my goofiness / is comfortable being goofy themselves.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I love that inner child. So tell us, tackling dating sober. Maso is about to dive into that situation at some point. So I've never dated sober. How was it? So
I will absolutely answer that, but just to get some context, because I want to know a bit of your story as well. So Breeza, Maso, where are you guys at in terms of relationships and in terms of alcohol and things like that? Because behind you, Breeza, there's a lot of rosés.
All alcohol free. They're
really?
Our podcast partner, Altina. Yes.
You guys have sponsors? Fucking hell. Can you please teach me and Ben how we can get sponsors?
So I was a single mum for 5 years, and then I met my partner 2.5 years ago, and I haven't been drinking for just over nearly 18 months.
Oh, okay. So you'd already met your partner.
Correct.
When you quit drinking. Okay, gotcha. And then
no, we were like fully into it. Like,
yes.
We were drinking. Yeah.
And then you quit drinking after
that.
I
quit. Yep.
Can I also just ask, does your partner still drink?
He does, yeah.
Yeah, great. My partner, Maddie, is a sommelier, so she's a wine expert. So it's very, very common, I guess, in a weird way. And what about you, Maso?
Yes. So funny story. This is my 4th go at sobriety.
Okay.
Not an alcoholic, just grey area drinker. Just needed to point that out.
Just what? Sorry, I missed that.
A grey area drinker. So
okay, what does that mean?
So how do we explain grey area?
So you don't identify yourself as an alcoholic in saying that you're not drinking every day, but alcohol is causing a problem in your life, and you probably can't go a weekend without it. It's
Yeah. So I've always, and again, we'll come back to Mesa. Sorry, just because on this point, which is that I've always never fully understood how to describe myself in terms of my relationship with alcohol. I go with alcoholic because it's the shortest distance to explaining so many things, right?
Yeah.
And some of my friends were arguing, saying my ability to switch it off was so good that it's almost unfair to label it as alcohol. I'm like, that is unfair because that's taking away from the effort I need to put in to do that, right? And so because I haven't so far relapsed or anything like that, people are like, but you didn't really have a problem. I'm like, well, that's not true, because if I felt that I was completely losing sense of myself and embarrassing my friends and family, and my blackout nights started to become 3 to 4 times a week sometimes, I'm like, surely, like, am I welcome in the club or not? Like, you know, but it just found it easier to say alcoholic than say I had difficult withdrawal. So that's why I just want to get a bit of context. So when you say, Maso, the 4th attempt at not quitting drinking, can I ask how long is this particular, at this point now, how long have you gone?
Yeah. So where was I up to?
You're over 12 months.
12 months, just gone 12 months. Just
12 months.
Clocked over 12 months.
And then if it's not too personal, the last time, the most recent time you said, okay, I need to go off it again, did it happen organically, or was there a moment where you went, fuck this shit? Or
like 12 months ago? Or
12
the one
months
before
ago.
that? Before
No, 12 months ago. The most recent stint.
Yeah, well, it was. Yeah, there was actually. It was Breeza. It was a conversation. You'll have to go back and listen to episode 1, Dil. I was caring for my dad full time, and I was really using booze as a stress relief, and it was actually causing more. I actually was using booze at the end of the day. I thought, I'll just have a couple of like cheeky gins. I turned them into double gins, and then those gins turned into earlier in the day to deal with the stresses that were going on. P.S. Dad's okay, but that particular time was really,
of course, and it's off the back of a pandemic, and all of that as well. So I remember something my therapist said to me is that during the struggles of the pandemic, when I was struggling with the lockdowns, living in Melbourne by myself, that the amount of times I was craving ice cream and all these other things. And in fact, actually, it's the first time I felt the pinch of wanting to drink again. And my therapist said to me, in terms of ice cream at 7 o'clock in the morning, things are so unpredictable and difficult right now that my flight or fight part of the brain is in such overdrive that, believe it or not, the kind thing to do for myself is to allow myself that ice cream, in that moment, because why give yourself any more rules when you're told you can't meet your parents, you can't fly and see your niece, you can't see your friends, you can't, like, you're just alone in a 1-bedroom apartment. Fucking let yourself have an ice cream in the morning if you want. And she said, but if you keep doing it, if you keep having ice cream for every meal and everything, then the kind thing to do is to restrict. So it's almost a balance of figuring out which point does it become unkind to restrict yourself, and which point, if you keep giving into it, does it become unkind? So it almost sounds to me that, given what you were dealing with in terms of your personal life with your dad and caring for your dad and the pressures of that, off the back of what was happening with the rest of the world, it sounds like the kind thing to do to yourself was that gin at the end of the day. And then after little by little, then it starts tipping into that point of going, no, now the kind thing to do is to restrict. So it's almost like, do you know what I mean? Like, rather than it being an all or nothing feeling of it being having to be binary, either you're on booze or not booze. No, there's somewhere for some people, if you are able to be grasp it better. Yeah, it's just a balancing act of knowing which point is it unkind to not allow yourself to have a fucking gin,
Yeah. So where are we up to? Back
we're
to
all
dating.
ears. We're all ears
dating.
with dating.
Oh, yeah, so they're dating,
Maddie, Dil.
Sorry. So where are you? So Mason,
me?
yes,
Yeah,
in terms of dating.
Oh, that's what we were going back to. Is that that last lot of sobriety? So when I had 14 months off it a few years ago, and met my very recent ex at the time, and we started drinking. I started drinking with him when we started dating. And then it was just 8 years of, we loved it. We partied it up, loved it. Booze was really prevalent in our relationship, and it was actually toxic. It ended up being quite toxic. And then we've very recently broken up, Dil.
How recent are we talking?
Yeah, I've just moved into a new place.
Oof, right. Right. So we're very fresh into back into singledom, and there's a lot of vulnerability there. Yeah,
it was a really long, rough breakup that went for longer than it needed to. But for me, this is the point of, okay, it's now for me to
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So firstly, knowing as well, like, as much as it feels like it was the right decision, and it sounds like it was to break up, it's still painful. So I'm sorry you went through that.
Thank
and,
you.
You know,
Yes,
and I hope you feel good soon.
Still.
And in terms of dating, for me personally, dating sober was the best thing to happen to me. Because and I'll give you the timeline. So throughout my drinking days, I'll go this way. I knew I had my drinking was getting out of control. I was embarrassing myself. I was really ashamed of who I was becoming. So I said, fuck it, not good enough for me anymore. I need to get sober. And therefore I went and not just said, I'm going to be sober. I started seeing a therapist. And I was like, I need someone to put this in place strong enough that I don't have to go back to it or make excuses for it or anything like that. So the therapist on day one, and it's the same therapist that I spoke to an hour ago. So on day one, I felt like we have a good relationship because she said to me, I explained a lot of things, and I explained about uni and all of that. She goes, I think it comes basically down to you're not a confident person. And I was like, this chick is crazy. Like, I was just in Queenscliff, performing to 1,000 people. And what do you mean I'm not confident? Like, and she said, no, like, that's all bravado. That's charisma and charm, and you've got plethora of it. But actual confidence, if you break it down as being you are someone who is content with who you are, you don't have that. And I was like, oh, fuck, tell me more. Like that was, and so then it all started, it's almost like fell into place as soon as she said that, because I'd never framed myself as an unconfident person because of my personality and how larger than life I am. How can you say I'm not confident? But the truth is, like, actually liking yourself, I didn't have that. So it was whether it was having a brother who was 5 years older than me, then it was always an overachiever and trying to match his performances, or whether it was coming to Australia and not feeling good enough. I never felt like I was enough, So when I would go on a date, even if someone showed a bit of attraction to me, the immediate thought that I had, the dialogue was that, oh shit, she's just seen you, say at the time of comedy, or she just saw you perform. She thinks you're interesting and cool, but she's not going to know that the real you is shit and boring. And you're, as if she likes you, look at you, you're an obese, unattractive man. So to shut that voice, I needed to drink. And if I got the balance right, then I could maintain that confidence and playfulness and charm. But more often than not, I went overboard and got too drunk, and because I was constantly trying to match a version of myself that I thought they wanted me to be. But because of therapy and learning how to actually like who I was, and then being okay with going, hey, if I think this, like this, put it this way. It's like I threw a party, like the Dilruk party. And I'm like, hey, I think this Dilruk party is awesome. Feel free to join. But if not, don't worry. There's plenty of other people who are going to get on board. And that's what all of a sudden made me way more attractive than the guy that showed, can you please come and hang out? Like, I really need you to come and, validate me by, being at my party. I'm like, no, this party is going to happen with or without you. I'm having the best time of my life. And it's almost like people, like dates I'd be on, like they'd be missing out if you don't want to, hang out with this. So that to me is why I link sobriety to being better at dating, is because I finally figured out that I don't need to mask who I am with booze, because I learned to be the version of me that I am proud of and that I loved. And I was just, excited to like say, it's almost like going, oh my God, like how lucky are you that you get to date me? But not in a gross, like not in a egotistical way, but a self-assured way going. And so then what happened, Maso, was that I would force myself, because I was uncomfortable, especially being a guy, I was uncomfortable going on a date where the girl was drinking and I wasn't. So I felt like there was some very yucky vibes about being sober and a girl getting drunk. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, this is I don't feel comfortable, because as soon as if she had more than 3 wines, I knew I was not even going to go for a kiss or anything. I was like, nah, because I just didn't want that to ever be even like a feeling of like, was there consent? Was it enthusiastic? Was it sober consent? All of that was just so yucky that I was like, no, but the first date has to be during the daytime. And so what that meant was I would catch up for like during a lunch break of someone, and then it meant there was no expectation of sex or even a pash. It was literally about just connecting with that person and seeing if you have a connection before anything else can happen. Because who the fuck's going to hook up at lunchtime, right? And I've got to get, they've got to go back to the office or whatever. So there was zero expectation. And also, I would be in like, active wear off the back of a run or whatever. Like there was no bells and whistles on the date. The date was purely a vibe check,
Yes.
And that
I used to do the same. I used to call it the walk and talk.
Yeah.
I'd meet them, and again, it was a safety thing as a female. I'd meet them in the daylight and I'd walk around the lake in Bendigo. So that way you're not like facing them as well. You're not like looking right across them. You just
and if they suck, just shove them in the lake.
Yeah.
So that makes that, and that's the thing. So then what that did is, and then because at the time as well, I wasn't looking for a long-term relationship. I was caught in this in-between place where because of this self-discovery and new confidence, I was like, oh no, I've finally like learned how to feel attractive, and I'm like, I can't lock this shit down yet. Like I need to have my slut years, and so. But at the same time, I was very uncomfortable with one night stands because I was sober. Sober sex when you're in love is amazing. Sober sex when it's a stranger is fucking disgusting. There's like juices flowing everywhere and you barely know each other's name, right? So that's why you need to drink, to mask the grossness of being that physically intimate with someone you've just met. So I was caught in between where I was like, I definitely don't want just sex for the sake of sex, but also I don't want a relationship. So that, and again, as per my therapist's instructions, saying you're completely justified in wanting to have, this years of, sexual promiscuity, but make sure that they're aware of it, because it's not fair. It's fair for you to have this, but it's unfair if they don't know that going into it, because they might be looking for a relationship. So I became very open about it. Initially, I might have maybe not told since like the second day or whatever and things like that. But by the end, I genuinely had it in my biography written, not looking for a relationship, but if that's what you're after, feel free to swipe left, kind of thing. Like, because I was very upfront of what I wanted. And I think that's how I actually ended up with Maddie's, because neither of us were looking for it, but we were in separate states. She was in WA, I was in Melbourne. It delayed the physical, connection for so long that it forced us to grow into this incredible, relationship before we had been physically intimate. But yeah, so going back to the point about sobriety, it meant that sobriety meant that I would have a date only in the daytime first and make sure there was a good connection. That meant that anything that followed after was grounded in an actual, a connection rather than just it being for the sake of dating. You know what I mean?
Everything you've just said here, Dil, it really resonates, because I've been walking around just going, who's going to love me? All this whole...
What is the thing? Remind me again what LYSSK stands for?
Yeah. I love you. Oh my God.
Yeah. I hate to be that guy, but seriously, just look in the freaking mirror. You've got it right on your head.
But it's fun. Thank you. God, you've really filled my heart there. And I think with what you were saying about, who you are on stage and who you are on the TV and who you are at home. And, I'm the same. People listen to us on the pod. I've got the social media and who I am, who I portray myself at work. But really who I am one-on-one, like it's really hard for me to delve into that space. And I also, it's a lot of growing. It's a lot of learning, growing. You've just given me a TED talk about dating.
Yeah, I'm feeling like Dil is going to be your dating coach, mate.
And I really love what you said, because Breeza and I just recorded a pod just before as well, and I spoke about sex sober, and there is such a difference. And I love sex sober because when you're actually making love with someone, it's just so passionate. Whereas, yeah, you're right. Like strangers, I kind of need to be sloppy and drunk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sloppy drunk sex, which I kind of need right now, I think. I don't know. Help me.
Absolutely. Like, look, it's again, I think, well, first thing is to figure out what exactly do you need and want right now. And that doesn't have to be necessarily exactly what you need and want in the future. Those two things can be different. Just, you need to kind of like, if you've got a kitchen that's flooding and a kitchen, a toilet that's flooding and a kitchen that's on fire, you put out the fire first. Let's get rid of that first and then deal with the flooding issue later. Like deal with the immediate stuff right now. You know what I mean? And if priority for you right now is sobriety, don't stress about the relationship thing first. Get that, locked in and at a state that you're comfortable with at first. But the other thing as well, though, is in terms of like, the thing about, how you feel about yourself, I actually said it in this year's stand-up show, which was because it was a lot to do with cooking and MasterChef and stuff like that, but I also dealt with the identity and belonging stuff. And I said, it's like, it's so much better to eat a meal prepared by someone who loves what they're cooking. Like whenever you see a chef enthused, even if you go to a house, like you go to a friend's house and they've cooked something, when they're so like, oh my God, you got to try my lasagna or my mac and cheese. It's the best. It is so much more enjoyable to eat it because they fucking love it too. Versus if someone was like, hey, I hate my cooking. Do you want to eat this, please? Because I need someone to validate me. So it's really vital, I think, for all of us to remember making sure that we're all cooking things that we really enjoy eating. So being versions of yourself that you'd rather be, that you want to be, rather than, because there's enough of people that are going to like that for what it is and not needing it to be, and no one's perfect. All of us are work in progress. You just want to be with someone who is excited to work with you on it,
Oh, got me in all the feels, Dylan. You've definitely given me some really beautiful encouragement and love to move forward with this. So thank you. Really, your words mean more than you understand. So thanks.
Oh, I'm happy. I'm glad. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah. So you're from Sri Lanka and you grew up with your mum being a Muslim and dad being a Buddhist. So what was alcohol like around there?
Bizarrely, so there was a lot of alcoholics in the family. And there's no two words about it, labeled absolutely alcoholic, to the point where a couple of them died because of alcohol. And they were all on the Muslim side. It is one of the strangest situations because it's so rare to hear about, because when you think of Islam, you think of how strict it is with alcohol. And we just had a family of rebels that, in spite of the, faith and wanting to they pray 5 times a day and all of that, but still would get blotto at nighttime. And I'm sure that plays a part in what I became, because it normalized binge drinking. You know what I mean? It felt like, because, it wasn't this scary. So if I had an uncle who was blackout drunk or embarrassing, it was cringy and, like, ugh, like, oh, so-and-so is fucking off on another one again. You know what I mean? But it was like, there's still love, you know what I mean? So I guess as a child, if you see that, you're like, oh, well, that's how you are. After 6 o'clock, you get drunk.
Normalized, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really not counterintuitive. It's very uncommon to hear that a Muslim family that had drinking issues.
Totally. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. We're just a group of people that just love to do things out of the ordinary,
Oh, wow. So it's your 6-year and soberversary today.
Yeah.
Coincidentally.
Yeah.
So that would have been August 18th. I'll do the math, people. Was there a compelling event, Dil, that like on August the 17th, were you hammered, or what? Was there one? I know you mentioned a couple of rock bottom moments, but was there anything that just went, okay, this is it, done?
I think there was a whole bunch of like blackout issues that were happening, and then like, getting messages from people the next morning saying, oh, fuck, do you remember what happened last night? And they're just having no memory of it or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it's just, there's a book called Atomic Habits that I absolutely love and live by. And he talks about like small changes and how they have like, it's by a guy called James Clear. Sometimes it feels like the one thing doesn't make an effort. So in terms of good habits, for example, let's say working out, if you worked out today and tomorrow, you're still not going to see a difference, right? Mm-hmm. And it's seemingly not making any difference until there's this breaking point. So he uses the example of an ice cube in a room that's at like 25 degrees or whatever. He said, every minute, if you increase it by 1 degree, the ice cube still remains. But suddenly around 33, 34 degrees, suddenly the whole fucking thing melts. And before you know it, it's gone, right? So there's never necessarily, it doesn't feel like the things that happen contributed at all, but they all start building onto this pressure point until it completely explodes. In this case, in this example, melts away. So I think that's what it was for me. It was never the one thing. They were all equal. Like each subsequential increase of the temperature is only 1 degree. So it doesn't feel like much, but the combination of them, it just leads to this. So for me, it was a series of shameful, like, realizations really that. And then I think a tipping point was also like a mate of mine who was, fucking absolute loose unit and a drug dealer saying to me, man, fuck, you need to get your shit together. Like when you have a drug dealer saying, wow, you fucking got you're a bit off track here. That was it. And then there's obviously a lot of pain and shameful memories attached to that moment in my life that I'm obviously not 100% comfortable sharing right now, but definitely it's just like a series of things. There's sometimes big moments. But there's also just sometimes it's like an aha thing when you start looking at certain stories in a different frame. So a classic example is one of my best friends, Becky. It was like a Facebook 10-year anniversary or whatever of being Facebook friends in 2017. So about a year after I quit drinking. It popped up. I don't even use Facebook anymore, but I remember at the time going, I wonder what, because Becky and I are just always on text messages or WhatsApp. And I said, I wonder what like our messages, messenger chats were like back then or whatever. And I looked, and the last message I've sent to her or thereabouts was from 2009. And I'm describing a story about how me and my mate John had gone out on the booze, and the next morning I woke up in an emergency ward, and how John woke up in lockup, and we both don't know what happened. And I'm like, I'm fine, but there's a huge bump on my head. And I'm framing it as how hilarious. Like, I'm like, what a wild night. John was in prison. I'm in lockup. Well, we're having the best time here. And I saw this maybe 2017 or 2018, whatever. And I'm like, that same dialogue was horrifying to me. You know what I mean? But at the time, the framing was, what a wild time. I'm having the best time of my life. Whereas then I'm like, dude, this is a guy asking for like, who needs serious help. So I think that plays a part in the sobriety as well, in terms of that should have been a rock bottom. It wasn't at the time. But then you start re-looking at all these things like the jumping on the car, and all that stuff, and going, man, I need to recalibrate here because I found a way to justify those behaviors, especially with stand-up. I think being able to make those stories funny and getting rewarded for that is, again, a very deadly kind of poison chalice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, because that does intertwine in your professional life, doesn't it? Those stories.
Yeah.
I can so relate to those little things that add up. I was similar, Dill, and my turning point for me was when I woke up and I don't remember putting the kids to bed last night. That was my line in the sand. Yeah. But there'd been so many things leading up to that I just chose to ignore. I'm like, red flag, but I'll be fine.
Yeah.
That was my tipping point. It was like, nah.
And sometimes maybe people might underestimate the value of having those shit moments, is because I remember someone saying to me, the longer you decide to get sober, you're very confident and comfortable with it, because the pain of what has happened, let's say, that inspired you to do it, is so fresh in your mind that it's easier to choose the pain of sobriety than the pain of being an alcoholic or having a drinking problem. But as time goes by, the pain of how bad the drinking got starts to reduce because you're further away from that incident or those thoughts. But the pain of sobriety starts taking over. So it's almost like it's easier to choose the lesser pain, right? We want to gravitate towards the thing that pains less. In this case, I feel like drinking. Fuck it. It sucks that I'm not drinking. Let me give into it, because you've forgotten how painful drinking was. But by having moments like reminding yourself, that feeling I felt when I couldn't remember putting my kids to sleep, would just shock your system into going, no, fuck, that's how bad it got. Oh God, I can't go back there again. And I find it helps me kind of, remind myself why I'm staying sober.
That's good to know, because I'm in that, as a Maso just said, we recorded an episode and I'm like, I just feel like getting hammered. Like I'm at that tipping point at the moment going, I could really do it with a drink. But just stay strong, Breeza, stay strong.
Stay strong. So you've got it, girl. You've got it.
Yeah. And again, it's like, there's a light and dark side. You know what I mean? There's like 80% of the time you want to be fueled by positivity and you know, the light side. Whereas 20% of tapping into the dark side is really helpful. I find that, like, I'll use the example of the when I did a marathon, right? 35-kilometer mark, my left leg was just dangling, like it was barely hitting the ground. And I remember thinking, my God, I've never run this far in my life. This is great. I've already achieved more than I need. I don't need to prove anything to myself. In the lead up, I was watching all these people like wearing shirts saying fueled by chemo. And I was like, man, this is so inspiring. And I love it. Like, it's so nice to be like pushing myself to this limit. By that 35-kilometer mark, I'm like, fuck this shit. No one needs to do this. And I was genuinely ready to quit, right? I was like, fuck it, I'm done. I've run more than I ever did.
Yeah.
No, nothing to be ashamed. Nothing to be ashamed of. And then immediately I started thinking about the number of, I'll say, quote unquote mates, people who are toxic friends who I knew will be happy that I quit, and knowing that they will be right kicked in. And I was so angered by that negativity that my 36-kilometer was the fastest kilometer I ran. So I went from having a left leg that barely worked to finding this motivation that just pushed through. So this is when I realized the value of keeping a little bit of that, for lack of a better word, the cunt in you.
Yeah.
Like so that can take in any form, whether it's, you know, wanting to disprove people, or, you know, there's a phrase, you know, prove the motherfucker's wrong or the deny is wrong, but also in terms of the shame and the darkness in your life. You know what I mean? Like just being able to remind yourself that, hey, this is how bad it got. And you don't want to wallow in it. You don't want to be, you know, self-flagellating by reminding yourself how embarrassing you are to, in my case, to my family and my friends, and how much of a, you know, like gross person I was becoming. You don't want to keep beating yourself because I'm better than that. I have proven that I'm better than that. But it's nice to tap into once in a while every time I feel like, oh, fuck, I'd love a scotch right now. And I'm like, yeah, but you know how this story ends.
Yes.
Do you really want to go back there? Because that's very similar to me, Maso, is that I run through that play by play going, okay, I know without a shadow of a doubt, I can have 2 drinks today and stop. I think with a shadow of a doubt that I can do that for a whole year, just having 2 drinks and stop. There will be, however, some point in the future where that 2 becomes 3, because the difference between 2 and 3 isn't that big a deal.
Yeah, it's one drink.
Then the difference between 3 and 4 stops being a bigger deal. And then what happens is the brain that operates after 4 drinks isn't the same brain that operates after 0 drinks. And that 4-brain drink will say, fuck it, we might as well have 10.
The lid's off.
Yes.
You know?
The lid is off.
So
You know how
I still miss drinking. I have a full liquor cabinet in my apartment of scotch and wine and gin, vodka, my favorite shit. I don't drink it because I know that I just don't like the end of this story, because I find a lot more benefit, and I wish I had this. What I'm about to say, I wish I was able to apply to my my relationship with food and overeating, which I don't have yet. But I wish I did it, because my relationship with alcohol is on a really long time scale. I'm not thinking in terms of 1 year or 2 years. I'm thinking in 10 years, because when I think about having drinks, I know I'll be fine for 2 years, but I know it's going to fuck me up for 10 years. Whereas with food, I'm so immediate thinking. I'm always like, oh, fuck, surely 2 pizzas in the one sitting isn't so bad. Fuck it, you know. But it's fuck. I mean, I had a heart attack earlier this year. They put a stent in me. I'm fine, you know.
Good to
but
go.
my thinking is short term. It's never in this long term scale horizon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Incredible.
But with booze, I'm very good at able to go, no, I'm looking at this from a 10-year point of view, and it's not worth the 10 years of misery. This little satisfaction that I'm going to get right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which brings us to the next question. How do you feel about booze now? You pretty much wrap that up.
Yeah, I definitely miss it. I miss it because as well, as much as there are these horrible memories with it, I would say nearly 90% of everything that's great in my life today is because I drank.
Because you drank.
Because I drank a lot, I think, is why my life is so awesome. And that's a weird one to wrestle with.
Yeah.
I don't think
Tell us that.
I don't think it's true. I think there's ways to rephrase it where I have more responsibility for how good my life is. But at the same time, if I didn't lean into being a pisshead in uni, I wouldn't have been as popular on campus. If I wasn't as popular on campus, I wouldn't have got on to the Common Student Society and the, student union at the same time.
Yeah.
If I didn't have those things, I wouldn't have got my job in accounting because of how good my extracurricular stuff was. I was like a fucking dream on a CV because it's like, it didn't matter that my grades were like 68% average. I was getting job offers that my friends with 90% percentage average couldn't get because they were like, this guy knows how to run shit. Like he's personable. He's, I was really fun. Like if you at a job interview, it was like, fuck, we want to hang out with this guy. Let's give him the job. Right. So that all comes from that personality that my alcohol gave me. Like, it's not like I was drinking at the meeting, of course, but I just had a vibe that you wanted to be part of. Right. Because of the confidence that booze gave me. And then if I didn't have that job, I wouldn't have got fired from that job because of how bad my drinking was. Or rather, sorry, I didn't drink like that on the job, but I wasn't motivated to do the work. But because I was more still looking to party. But because of that party lifestyle, I ended up getting fired. And because I got fired, I started thinking, what can I do? What else can I do with my life? And I thought, oh, fuck it, I'll have a crack at stand-up. In stand-up, the bits that worked the best were my boozing stories. And so then that fuels my career to the next level. Yeah. And then obviously it got bad that I had to stop, but I carried on my, the trajectory I was on that booze kind of gave me the launching pad for.
It's so funny that you bring that up, Dil, because I love my boozy stories. Like I love them. I've got so many good boozy stories. And I think, well, I'm going to run out of stories.
Yeah.
Like what next?
well, this is the thing. Like, and that worried me as well as when I started. When I quit. And it was also more so about my weight because I had a lot of fat jokes. And I was like, fuck, if I lose weight, that means I lose like 90% of my material. And then I was like, fuck that. I'm a better writer than that. I can find other ways to make people laugh. And I made a decision in 2016, 95% of the material was about being fat. 2017, I said 0 and I was still big. And then 2018, I lost the weight. So my theory is that I needed to prove to myself that I am worthy of being a comedian, not just because I'm fat, but because I'm actually a good comedian. And by proving that to myself allowed my subconscious to let go of that identity as an obese person and go, no, you're not that version that's getting, applauded and rewarded for making fun of your obesity, on stage. You are whoever you want to be. And I decided like, I want to, I just want to be a version that I'm happy sitting by myself with.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
That's amazing.
And you're here now. Like you.
Yeah. Oh, and there's so much I need to work on, by the way. All of this is just, I felt like I've only scratched the surface. Like I briefly mentioned the heart attack, and that's something that I'm not very comfortable, unpacking too much because it's still very raw. But a big part of that is having the heart attack at age 37 means that right now I have a very unfair lack of kindness towards my physicality because I'm like, I feel let down, quote unquote, by my body because I'd gotten fit and I'd lost weight and I ran marathons and I quit drinking and yet I still had a fucking heart attack. What the fuck is this? And I know none of that's true, but the narrative that's in my head is that's what it's playing. So there's so much I need to still work through even in terms of that. Because every time I think I've reached a new level of self-awareness or self-actualization, there's a new fucking barrier that comes aboard. And so what I've learned to accept is that I will never finish this puzzle, but fuck, I love working on this puzzle. You know what I mean?
Quote of the ep. And therapy, like how good therapy. We all love therapy.
All about it.
You touched on it earlier, Dil, about some people said to you, oh, you didn't have a problem with drinking. Like what were some of people's reactions and even support from colleagues? What's that been like over the journey?
They've been mainly good. It's been really incredible to see the number. Put it this way. I think everyone was surprised that I did it and did it so well. Yeah. There was one ex-friend who said at the time, when we haven't spoken in about 3 years or so, but when I first quit drinking, they said, oh, you're really boring now that you don't drink. you should drink again. And it really hurt because I, trusted and respected this person. And then now in hindsight, I know that they said that because they have a problem themselves. And whenever I was around, I was behaving worse than they were. So there was no light shine on their behavior.
You're the enabler.
Yeah.
I was just someone that was what's the word, scapegoat, or the distraction.
Yeah.
Because, oh yes, I was bad, but fuck, how bad was Dill? And then the conversation moves to Dill's behavior as opposed to his. And so for me, those are good little, like it still hurts to think about things like that, and the lack of support sometimes. But then I also go, thank you for that feedback, because now I know not to keep you around in my life, or at least not in that capacity, because I don't need that. You know what I mean? I don't need, if someone's trying their hardest to be better, to say that because for certain people, it's easier to bring other people down to their level than try to lift themselves up.
Yeah.
So they'd rather not do that work that elevates themselves. It's just easier to tear people down. And that's quite common, especially in Australia with Paul Poppy syndrome. It's just like, fuck that. Why is that person, performing? No, let's bring them down because I can't do the work to get up to that level.
Yeah.
Did you have I know we've spoken about that defining moment, but did you announce it to everyone, I'm cutting out booze, or did you fly under the radar? Did you know that was it forever? And what has been the highs and the lows of sobriety, Dill?
That's a good question. I don't think I announced it. I think I was I don't remember. I genuinely don't remember whether I definitely didn't put like an Instagram post or anything like that. Yeah. I think I was so fueled by shame at that point that I didn't need words anymore. You know what I mean? So for example, let's say you said something and that was, mean-spirited or inappropriate, and then you apologize the next day, they forgive you. And if you keep doing it, then you start to go, well, hang on, am I really that apologetic if I keep doing it? Now, the problem is the person apologizing is sober and not drunk anymore. And that version of me sincerely was regretful. Mm-hmm. But the person that did the behavior it felt like it wasn't me. And I started apologizing for a person that I don't even know. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like the closest pop culture reference is the Hulk, Bruce Banner feels shamed of the destruction he has done the night before, but it's not him. It's like this fucking green monster that's come out and done all of it. But, you have to still take responsibility that the monster still came from you. And you can either choose to say, fuck it, I don't care about people anymore and I'm just going to destroy the city. Or you go, no, I need to try and figure out how to control this or suppress it or take myself out of the equation, right? As in not in terms of like self-harm or anything, but just take myself out of that situation of that like how that can come up again. So I think that's why I didn't really make any announcement about it, because I didn't want it to be any more words. I actually wanted the actions to prove that I actually mean it, that I'm not just saying, oh, sorry about that, because, and then do something similar the following weekend,
Yeah, actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
We've just got a couple more questions there before we start wrapping up. For our listeners who are, on their sobriety journey or feeling a bit wobbly in their sobriety journey, what are some of the tools that worked for you at the start and are still working for you?
I think one that works for me is reminding myself why I quit in the first place. So using that dark side, like reminding, like not letting go of how painful that is. And again, to bring Brené Brown back again, she talks about guilt versus shame, and like shame is very unhelpful. And to try and like having guilt is good because that shows, taking accountability and responsibility for your actions. But shame is just this is research-based, things that she talks about. And shame just has no value. Like shame is the difference between guilt and shame. I think she describes it as being guilt means you feel bad about the action. Shame means you feel bad about yourself, and nothing good there's no action from feeling bad about yourself. Because if you feel you say you vomited at a party on your friend's couch or whatever. I'll use an real example. I stayed over at a friend's house and I pissed myself on the couch and you had to throw the couch out. Right? Horrible thing, right? And he's getting up in the morning, getting ready to go to work, and I'm there, like he's like, "Fuck, man!" And he didn't even get angry. And I think that was another one of those rock bottoms. It should have been a rock bottom, but wasn't. He was like, "Man, just just figure what's going on with you kind of thing. It's not even anger. Do you know what I mean? And you have to throw the couch up. Now, I feel guilty about that because I cannot believe I did that. But at the time, I felt shame, which was, I'm such a piece of shit. And if I'm repeating that narrative, I'm a piece of shit who pissed on my friend's couch, then why would I bother prioritizing looking after this piece of shit? Because he does not deserve to be looked after because he's a worthless piece of shit. He might as well keep drinking to mask what a piece of shit he is. You know what I mean? So it just kept going over and over on a loop. But by hijacking it and going, no, I can feel incredibly guilty and remorseful of what I did. But that doesn't have to mean that I am a bad person. The action is different to the person that performed the action. By doing that, it meant that, if I'm still a good person, then I do deserve to treat myself well. And I do deserve to accept a better standard of living from myself. I shouldn't disappoint me anymore. Why do I keep disappointing myself? No, I shouldn't, because I do love myself now, and then going, okay, right. If you do really love yourself, then you don't want to have that type of action again. So therefore, bringing it back to going, think of the things that are, that you are that you feel bad about, but make sure it's guilt and not shame.
Love this. Dil, so good.
So good.
We're going to just throw a couple of quick fire rapid questions at you. Chicken, wings or drumsticks?
Wings these days.
Yep.
Love the softer part of it.
Yeah.
But I do love a drumstick.
Both.
Yeah. If you gun to my head, had to pick one, I'd go wing.
There you go. Wing ding. Ice cream, favorite brand and flavor?
Oh, that's pretty hard. I'll say, okay, I think this is a Melbourne place, but Peter People, I don't know if it's any other part of the country, but they do the best salted caramel, I reckon. But also Messina Gelato used to have a special that only comes out once in a while called Dulce di Leche. And I reckon that's my all-time fave. Dulce di Leche is what I described as being described how my dating life was, which is that I was trying a whole bunch of different varieties of ice cream. And then suddenly I found the one ice cream that I'm more than happy to eat for the rest of my life. It does not mean that there aren't ice cream flavors that still seem lovely to me. But if this is all I get to eat, what an amazing life I have.
Oh, yes.
Gorgeous.
Maddie, ice cream.
And by the way, I'm fully aware how problematic it is to reduce relationships to food.
And then tell me, have you eaten them both together? Ice cream and chicken.
I thought you were talking about relationships. What kind of kinky shit are you into, mate? So, thank God.
Shaking things up.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, that's a magnum. Oh. I don't think I've had ice cream, as in like mixed together. No, I've definitely had fried. Like back in the day when I used to do cheat days, where I do like 6 days of dieting and 7th day off, it was like my go-to is to get delivered fried chicken and gelato. Like that was was like staple on Saturday after a 5K run. So, but I don't think I've ever mixed them. Have you guys?
No deal.
Nada.
No deal.
Though. I feel
But
like
the best fried chicken I've had was in Brooklyn, in America.
I've never been to America. Oh my God.
Amazeballs. Amazeballs.
All right. Phone fuck up with a
Phone
PH.
fuck up with the PH. Just we can give it F with the call or text. Phone fuck up with the PH. Give him a ring. Check it roll the dex.
I thought I had like an easy one for this one, but then it's all kind of dropped out because I feel like, I've definitely like, can I slightly adjust the phone fuck up?
Yeah. Do whatever you want.
So let's use a laptop. Let's use laptop.
Yeah.
So I have back in the boozy days before, I think it's probably before iPhones and stuff like that, I'd need distractions to sleep when I was drunk or whatever. And I'd have the laptop on my lap in bed. And I rolled over and crushed the laptop in my sleep because of alcohol, like because I'm so passed out. I crushed the screen.
Oh, no.
Wait for it 3 times.
Oh, no.
No.
So does that, can I use that as a phone fuck up?
That is epic. That trumps the phone fuck up.
Yeah.
And finally, recommendation of the week.
It's time for the recommendation of the week.
Well, let's go with Peter People Salted Caramel. I think
gonna
if you
hunt
live in
that
Melbourne, if you live in Melbourne, there's one in Carlton, just on Lycon Street, or there's one on De Grave Street in the city. So
Good
give
little
them a
tip.
shout out. They're fucking busy. They don't need my shout outs, but credit where credit's due. It's awesome.
And where can we find you, Dil?
Get me on Dilruk J on Instagram. But otherwise, if people have Amazon Prime, my stand-up special Bundle of Joy is still streaming. And yeah, you can hear stories about the pulling down Spencer Street story as well as the vacuum cleaner story are both in there.
And Fitbit Pod.
And of course, Fitbit
yes.
Pod with former guest Ben Lomas.
Yeah.
We talk a lot of this kind of stuff and more.
Yeah, we
Love
love
it.
it.
Maso, get your phone out while we
Oh,
do
yes.
our thank you, Dil. You've been an absolute sensational superstar. I love this chat. And thanks for the therapy. I feel like
I'm glad you get something out of it, but the truth is it's just sometimes it's good for me to kind of remember these things, in terms of like the lessons I've kind of learned. It's nice to have like reasons to remember them back,
So
Amazing.
good. Thank you so
Give
much
us
for
a
What am I
sharing.
holding my? Do I hold up my water?
We're doing
Yeah,
a video.
Yeah.
It's going to go on a story still, so give us a little
Awesome.
bit of movement.
Oh, really?
Oh, so we're going now.
Okay.
Excellent.
Awesome.
But this is pure vodka.
Nice. Skull. Open that gallon up.
Oh my God, triggered.
Thank you.
Still,
Thank you for your time.
Legend.
Yeah. thank you for
My
being so
pleasure. I'm so
generous.
glad we got to do it. And what a bizarre thing that it happened on this day of all days.
I know.
It's perfect.
Incredible.
Honestly,
Meant to be.
it's immediately put me in like the biggest, best mood. I was already in a good mood, but I'm in an even better mood because of that. So thanks so much for providing that
Congratulations.
moment. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me as a guest as well.
Well done.
We love
Thank
you
you, guys.
Thanks, Dil.
Take care.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This podcast is proudly produced by our audio engineer, music extraordinaire, Eric Ladd.
We love you, Eric.